what we've come up with is an idea to move forward from discussing research that's ongoing within the IARPIC domain by various agencies within the IARPIC community to actually trying to initiate a new activity that would actually involve the assessment or synthesis of observations. And what we would like to do is explore the idea of assessing the causes of vegetation greening and browning that's been observed in the satellite data record based upon looking at data from the past 30 to 40 years by using a synthesis of field observations that have been collected by different groups or organizations in different areas of Arctic and boreal regions. And so what we want to do today is introduce people to this overall concept and then discuss, is this something that there's enough interest in that we can move forward? And by moving forward, we've actually identified a couple of opportunities to actually hold. Could people mute their?
You know, where I was just generating some.
We've identified what we think are a couple opportunities where we could get some funding for a couple of workshops. One to sort of outline or to basically flesh out what we could actually do during a synthesis, and then a second workshop to actually bring together a group of scientists to actually start carrying out a synthesis of field data to address specific questions or hypotheses that we come up with. So I'll just go over this a little bit more detail. First of all, what we're proposing to do here is actually address a few of the key performance elements that have been defined by the IARPIC 5-year plan. First of all, the performance element 711 calls for synthesis of results from field-based research and monitoring to improve understanding of important ecosystem changes. And then performance element 713 calls for the use of information products derived from remote sensing data to monitor and understand key ecosystem processes. And so what we were thinking about was an activity that links and addresses both of these performance elements, which focuses on this overall area of satellite observed greening and browning. So the remote sensing observations, I think we're all aware of them, that we're seeing a series of observations that are based upon the NDVI index, which really gives an indication of vegetation and greening and browning. And what these satellite observations are showing is that there's distinct patterns of greening and browning that occur in different parts of the Arctic and boreal regions, both in North America as well as Eurasia. What we would focus on here is probably the greening and browning patterns in Western North America, focusing on Alaska, but also including Western Canada if there's sufficient interest. And then I think what's emerging here is that there are a number of hypotheses that have been developed that address the causes of these greening and browning patterns. But these hypotheses vary depending upon what specific type of ecosystem you're looking at and the processes that control vegetation growth and mortality in these different regions. So you don't have a single, I think, process that's driving greening and browning everywhere. And so the question is then, what can we do to understand what's driving these patterns of greening and browning? And our idea is that within the IARPC federal agencies, there's actually a number of longer-term data sets that are part of research activities like the LTERs or other NSF-funded activities, as well as a large number of data sets that are based upon mainly within the Department of Interior, their inventory and monitoring programs that cover specific areas that these agencies have responsibility for. And then in addition, I think what we're seeing is that there's new remote sensing data sets are being generated that provide some independent ways to study factors that might be causing or driving changes of greening and browning. In particular, you can think about information that's derived from soil moisture. You can look at data sets that deal with quantifying shrub cover in different regions using different approaches. There's other data sets that are really looking at dynamics at tree lines. So there's these different data sets that we could bring together to sort of look at, can we develop a better understanding of the greening and browning patterns? And so the question we're asking here is that can IARPC, with the support of its member agencies, develop an activity focused on improving understanding of vegetation greening and browning? And this activity might follow a few specific steps. The first step would actually be a compilation of metadata sets from existing research and monitoring activities so that we know where do we have data and what types of field data are available. It could include an evaluation of what causes of vegetation change could be assessed using the available field data, because it's unlikely that we'll have enough data to address all the hypotheses, but what we have to determine is, given the available data, what questions or hypotheses can we actually address? And then once we move through those first two stages, then we can organize a synthesis of research and monitoring data to address the hypotheses of the drivers of vegetation greening and browning. So what we want to do today is open up a discussion amongst our various participants here. Do you think this is something worthwhile pursuing? And to sort of facilitate this discussion, I've actually recruited 3 people to help organize this, that what I would hope would emerge as the formation of a vegetation working group. Includes Amy Breen, who works at the University of Alaska, and Michelle Mack at the University of Northern Arizona, and Howie Epstein of the University of Virginia. And I've asked Howie and Amy to give their perspectives on the satellite perspectives and field data perspectives, and then Michelle's going to lead the discussion after that. So I think I'll turn over the microphone to Howie.